ZZZ has an event problem. We have a lot that's usually actively going on. At the time of recording, this is during Miyabi's banner, right before New Year's. But depending on when you're watching this, may look different, so keep that in mind. But I played Genshin Impact, it was my first gacha game. I moved on to HSR. I played PGR, WW, and a variety of others, including Arknights, Blue Archive, and Snowbreak Containment Zone. So I'm used to different events, different gachas. I also play Nikkei actively. I think ZZZ doesn't really understand the type of game that it is at this point, because Genshin has the open world exploration to really do. And let's be honest here, ZZZ has these little instance areas, but they aren't as alive as I think they were originally supposed to be or advertised as. First off, you will barely, and I mean barely, see characters at any point in time. You may have one recurring character, like Anton, for example, for me, and maybe Koleda. But you won't see a variety of characters or active characters walking around and doing anything like that. Which, yes, I understand, may not be something you need, but outside of, I suppose, that first week of when you get a character and you're actively trying to push up for that trust rank, if you want the wallpaper at least, that's all you really care about. Because if we're actually looking into any of the interactions you may have with them, there isn't like a large variety to the extent to where you're sitting down saying, I want to meet them over and over again. It's not like Nikkei's advisement stories or the Outpost stories. It's not like Blue Archive's Momo Talks and Hangouts. You don't have much to go off of here. And so with that in mind, these areas don't really feel worthwhile. I'm not really going anywhere to buy things. I go to coffee sometimes. Sometimes I may come up here and grab a scratch card. I don't ever level my bamboos. Like, all my bamboos are level 1. The video store is nice, but speaking bluntly, I don't think once you have it at max level, you should really need to come in every day and set a new manager and click recommended tapes just to leave again. Just have me set a character to run that for either the whole week or for as long as I want and then come back later on. There's no real benefit I'm getting. It's not like the video store actually has mechanics involved within it. I get occasional drops from the character who's managing the store, and that's it. I don't think the noodle shops are worthwhile because it's the equivalent of food in Genshin Impact or in HSR. At least HSR has the food that restores technique points, which is useful for Smooth Universe or Divergent Universe, but outside of that, you never use food in the first place. So this is just flavor text at this point. You have these little bamboos, which I think, yes, have potential to be valuable because you are paying credits in exchange for actual items that you may use otherwise, but credit gain in this game is much worse, arguably, than Genshin Impact and HSR, especially for what you're getting per resin or stamina spent, that it sucks to use in general. Like, yeah, you could do this, but realistically, you're spending 100 stamina, and hypothetically, you're going for any one of these. Let's say right now you actually want to build up a stun character. Then you're getting a 75,000, I believe, per 100 stamina. So most of that is already going to either two of these, and that's it. That's not really a fair exchange. Just farm it using your stamina because at the end of the day, that's more valuable. You're getting more bang for buck at that point. But that's me. I understand. Hey, you may have an abundance of credits. You may decide, I want to grab one a day. Cool. But beyond that, events themselves aren't that fun. And I don't mean that within the concept of events aren't interesting. I understand they can be interesting from a story perspective. But, like, if we're looking at characters as an example, Miyabi and Haramasa are on banner right now. If you've played since launch, you know Ellen Jo was on banner originally. Ellen did not have a single combat-focused event for her own banner, meaning you had no way to actually test her out. You had, I believe, one section of the story-based missions towards the end of what was available for content within that patch, and then you had her trial. Not any legitimate way to test her out during an event and see if you like her gameplay. You couldn't test her out and drag her into Hollow Zero to see if you like her long-term. You just had to guess. But when Lighter released, you got Ellen to test out with him. You got Soldier 11 to test out with him. You had a variety of teams you could use with him. Because he's a stun character who can benefit both fire and ice. You couldn't use the ice DPS in a team to find out if you liked her. Which, hey, it's kind of stupid. But I understand that could just be me. Maybe you don't need that. Well, okay, you have a variety of different events here. First off, looking at older events, Cheesetopia was awful. Overlord's Feast was not fun. I don't understand why they decided to drag the food events from Genshin Impact into here. Genshin, at the very least, I could say can get away with it because Genshin is an open world exploration game, primarily speaking. It has combat, yes, and the combat is interesting. The elemental system is nice, but it can do a variety of mechanics. ZZZ is like PGR, is like something akin to maybe Aether Gazer as well. Combat's the meat and potatoes of the game. Yes, you can play for story, and if you do, I understand that. But combat is something a lot of individuals like because they want a more combat-focused game. You don't play HSR, you watch HSR. And so if Genshin has a balance between reading and playing, this one seems like it would be the most combat-heavy. Why is it that the events usually have the most story in them? And don't get me wrong, I'm fine with that, but ZZ has a skip mechanic. Why is it so inconsistent though? I can skip main story. Sometimes. I can skip events sometimes. Make it consistent. As much as I think WW has some worst areas, WW is consistent with you can skip anything. I don't understand why they don't just do it here. Because I think a legitimate issue is when you're playing a lot of HoYoverse games, you run into the problem of, oh yeah, I want the gems, but I don't want to do the event. I don't want to read the entire book to get those gems. And a lot of times those events aren't combat oriented. This Bangbu versus Ethereal is just Arknights, but worse. And don't get me wrong, I like Arknights. I don't like this. This is bad. Because this isn't the combat I came to the game for. It's very weird. Personally, I build characters so I can use those characters. I didn't build characters so I can organize food on a puzzle, or play as a Bangbu I don't care about, or play tower defense in the game that doesn't really have tower defense in the first place. It's like they took the experimental aspect from Genshin, but didn't really understand why it was fine Genshin. At the very least, the big events in Genshin Impact had like a month-long timer duration, and a lot of fighting usually. It only got bad when it said, hey, explore this area 100% to get the Kirara skin. Which, no, I did not do. So I don't understand why they think it's okay here. I'm just saying, I feel like events should be more combat-oriented, and I feel like if you're going to do combat in general, do it in the way that HSR does SU. Have a lot of buffs happen. Buffs make the combat more interesting and fun because you can get overpowered and it's very fun. The power fantasy is very nice, especially when you have actual hard combats, like in something such as the Deadly Assault. Do that more often. Why did you forget about that? I don't know. Maybe this is just me. Tell me your thoughts down below. But I feel like this game really should lean more heavily into the combat aspect of events and not the story aspect of events. And if they are going to lean into the story, add a skip button for those who want it, and add the story into the event archive. Otherwise, we run into the Genshin problem where there's actual significant story you don't experience because you didn't do the event.